So very good morning everyone. Today we will discuss mainly about your ventilation and perfusion and their ratio. So we already discussed different zones of pulmonary blood flow and we will see the variations of ventilation perfusion ratio and dead space we have already discussed along with briefly about dead space and physiological shunt we will discuss now. So again go through this table, only we are concerned about this oxygen and carbon dioxide. In the dry air what is their percentage, in the moist tracheal air see their partial pressures, these are the partial pressures. Here the difference is addition of water vapor. This reduced the partial pressure of oxygen and also the nitrogen because total pressure is same, but you know that partial pressures will be equal to the sum of partial pressure is equal to the total pressure. So because of addition of excess water vapor at same total pressure they adjusted nitrogen and oxygen. This in the next video I will discuss in detail. So now we know that there are three zones of blood flow, zone 1, 2 and 3. In zone 1 the alveolar pressure is higher than the arterial and venous pressure, capillary and venous pressure. So the blood flow mainly depends here on the arterial pressure. Only if arterial pressure overcomes this alveolar pressure, blood can flow. But in physiologically normal subjects, this zone 1 will be less or it is absent because alveoli will be compressing the both pulmonary artery, capillary and pulmonary vein. Whereas zone 2 which is normally present in the uppermost regions of your lungs where the arterial pressure is greater than the alveolar pressure but alveolar pressure is more than the venous pressure. So constantly veins will be compressed and when the blood flow is mainly determined by arterial alveolar pressure difference. When arterial pressure is greater than the alveolar pressure, blood will try to flow through the capillary and enter the veins like a waterfall. I told you this will be like a waterfall. Veins will catch in between because they are highly compliant. They will try to relax in between. So when the arterial pressure is more than alveolar pressure, which is compressing from outside, blood will flow and enter the. So here there is a possibility of exchange of gases. Here there is no possibility of exchange of gases. Why? Blood is not flowing in zone 1. Zone 1 increases during your shock. And zone 3, here alveolar pressure is lower than both arterial and venous pressure. Same like your systemic circulation, the blood flow in the capillary is determined by arteriovenous gradient. It has nothing to do with the alveolar pressure. So most of your lung is in zone 3. You can see the blood flow. Blood flow is how it is increasing from the top, middle and bottom. The perfusion of the lung increases from apex to the base. Why it increases from apex to the base? Because of the effect of gravity. The mean arterial pressure at the apex is 6.6 millimeters of mercury. If we don't overcome the alveolar pressure, alveoli will compress the capillaries and blood will not flow through these capillaries. But as you go from apex to base, the mean arterial pressure increases from 6.6 to around 17 millimeters of mercury. So here inevitably these pressures will be more than the alveolar pressures and blood will flow easily. So the perfusion will increase fivefold from the apex to base of the lung. So because there is this zonal variations of blood flow, there can be mismatching between the arterial and alveolar air, right? Here because the capillaries are compressed, no gas exchange occurs. Here also until unless arterial pressure overcomes the alveolar pressure, the blood will not go into the pulmonary vein. So here also gases exchange is not perfect. Only in the zone 3 gases exchange is perfect and as it is desired. So there can be a physiological mismatching. What is this ventilation perfusion ratio? What is this ventilation? You know, the amount of air moving in and out of the amount of air moving in and out of your lungs. So what is the respiratory minute volume? Because your tidal volume is 500 ml, into 12, that is 6 liters per minute. Now, out of this 6 liters per minute, only 350 ml air reaches the alveoli, which takes part in exchange of gases. So actual alveolar ventilatory rate per minute is 4.2 liters per minute. Okay, that 350 ml into respiratory rate, that will give you 4.2 liter per minute, or else 350 ml per single breath. Perfusion is the amount of blood flow going to the lungs. We already know entire right ventricular cardiac output reaches the lungs. So what is the perfusion rate per minute? It is 5 liters. It is the entire cardiac output. So this ventilation perfusion ratio is the ratio of alveolar ventilation to the amount of blood flowing through the lungs. That is 4 divided by 5, that is 0.8. This is an average ventilation perfusion ratio in your lungs. So in upright posture, what happens to ventilation? Ventilation increases from apex to base. Why this is happening, we already know, because of the effect of gravity. What happens to intrapleural pressure? It is more negative at the apex, less negative at the base. Similarly, transpulmonary pressure is already higher at the apex, lower at the base. Compliance is low at the apex, high at the base. Why? Because apex of the lung is at higher lung volume. There is no further increase in lung volume. So for a same unit change in pressure, the change in volume is more at base. Compliance is more at base. Ventilation is more at base of the lung. This is because of the effect of gravity. This we already discussed. Compliance also increases from apex to base because apex is already at higher lung volumes. So there won't be much delta V at the apex. This already we discussed. So when we go from apex to base of the lung, the ventilation increases twofold, or else from base to the apex, the ventilation decreases twofold. What about perfusion? From the apex to base of the lung, perfusion increases fivefold. This we already know because of the effect of gravity. The blood reaching the apex of lung is less. Mean arterial pressure is 6.6 millimeters of mercury, and the base perfusion is very high because the mean arterial pressure is 17 millimeters of mercury. So from the apex to base, both ventilation and perfusion increases. Ventilation increases twofold, perfusion increases fivefold. So at the apex, the ratio of ventilation to perfusion is around 3.6. So apex is highly ventilated, less perfused. And when you go to the base, ventilatory perfusion ratio is 0.6. Average is 0.8. It is 0.6. Here perfusion is very high compared to the ventilation. But from apex to base, ventilation increases twofold, perfusion increases fivefold. I am talking from apex to base. So this is very, very important. Now, what is the importance of this ventilatory perfusion ratio? At the apex, perfusion is less, the ventilation is more. So there is 3.6 ventilatory perfusion ratio. So apex is under perfused area. More air is available, more oxygen is available, but it is not useful for your gas exchange. So this apex of the lung is commonest site for your bacterial infection, especially aerobic bacteria like your tuberculosis bacteria. They grow abundantly in the apex because the oxygen available in the well ventilated apex is not used for gas exchange because of the lowest perfusion. Because for gas exchange to occur, both perfusion should be equal as the ventilation, and it should be adequate. If there is no perfusion and only ventilation, air is going into the apex of lung, but it is not useful for your exchange of gases. And at the base of the lung, because of the low ventilation perfusion ratio, because blood flow is more and the ventilation is not as much high as perfusion, there can be some of the blood can leave without being fully oxygenated. So somewhere in between zone 2 and zone 3 is the best place for the ventilation, both perfusion, that is for the gases exchange. So at the completely at the base or completely at the apex, there is mismatching of the ventilation and perfusion. So the regional ventilation, okay, if you measure, the ventilation is more at the base. This is because of the higher compliance at the base and more expansion of lung at the base compared to the already expanded apex. So alveolar ventilation is high at the base compared to the apex. So from apex to base, you can see the increase in ventilation. If you do, so the partial pressures of alveolar air, final alveolar air, depends on the exchange of gases, how gases exchange is occurring, and also alveolar ventilation and blood flow ratio, that is ventilation perfusion ratio. So we express this as ventilation perfusion ratio. So this is a normal ventilatory perfusion ratio. Okay, at normal ventilatory perfusion ratio, that is 0.8. After exchange of gases, what will be the partial pressure of oxygen in your blood is 100 millimeters of mercury, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide at this normal ventilatory perfusion ratio is 40 millimeters of mercury. So the blood leaving lungs at with the normal ventilation perfusion ratio, partial pressure of oxygen is 100 and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40. Always remember, the rate of ventilation is inversely proportional to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So how I will explain you, this is very simple, right? What is the function of your venous blood? It carries excess carbon dioxide from the tissues. So around 46 millimeters of mercury is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in venous blood. When it goes to the alveoli, venous blood goes to the alveoli, uh, the alveolar partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 millimeters of mercury. So the diffusion of carbon dioxide occurs from your pulmonary capillaries into the alveoli, because it is 46 here and 40 in the alveoli. Now, if the rate of ventilation increases, that means air coming in and going out increases, what happens? This alveoli will wash the carbon dioxide, right? Carbon dioxide is not present in the incoming air. It is only produced by your body. Now, this alveolar carbon dioxide will be washed. Now, when alveolar partial pressure carbon dioxide, because of increase in ventilation, is washed out, the partial pressure of alveolar carbon dioxide decreases from 40, 30, 20 like that. Now, further fresh venous blood is going to the pulmonary capillaries with 46 mm. Let's say at that moment, carbon dioxide value is 20 in the alveoli. More amount of diffusion occurs from your pulmonary capillary into the alveoli. So, initially, the blood coming out of the lungs will be at 40 mm partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Now, because alveolar carbon dioxide is very less, more and more carbon dioxide diffused from the venous blood into the alveoli. Venous blood in the pulmonary capillary into the alveoli. And the blood in the vein coming out will have lower carbon dioxide partial pressure. Normally it is at 40, it will go way below. See. So normally the systemic arterial blood, that means pulmonary, similar to the pulmonary venous blood, which has partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Alveolar gas has partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Venous blood 46. So normally gas exchange occurs between this and this. Now increase in ventilation makes this alveolar gas carbon dioxide levels very low. It will go till 20. Now gas exchange occurs between 46 and 20. So more gas will be lost. So this also decreases. This also decreases. So pulmonary vein or else systemic artery, the carbon dioxide partial will be less. So that means when ventilation increases, what happens to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in alveoli decreases, partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the your oxygenated arterial blood decreases. What happens when opposite occurs? If ventilation decreases, carbon dioxide starts accumulating in the alveoli because your air is not going much outside. When it starts accumulating in the alveoli, carbon dioxide accumulates in the capillary blood. The exchange of carbon dioxide decreases. So carbon dioxide levels in the arterial blood increases, right? Because carbon dioxide is not washed outside. So when ventilation decreases, the blood partial pressures of carbon dioxide will increase. So that's why ventilation has inversely proportional ratio with your carbon dioxide. This is very, very important. In hyperventilation, partial pressure of carbon dioxide decreases. In hypoventilation, partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases. That is the main, and carbon dioxide is main determining factor for your ventilatory ratio, mainly your respiratory rate that we will discuss in your neural regulation of respiration. Now, when the ventilatory perfusion ratio decreases, that means ventilation perfusion ratio decreases, where that means exchange of gases is impaired, right? Ventilation perfusion ratio decreases, exchange of gases is impaired. Then partial pressure of oxygen will be less oxygen diffused into the pulmonary capillaries and less carbon dioxide diffused out of the pulmonary capillaries. So the partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases. Now, when ventilatory perfusion ratio increases, when it increases, what happens? The more and more carbon dioxide is washed away. You can see PCO2 levels fall till zero also, right? Normally at 40, they will fall till zero because of increase in ventilation perfusion ratio. And more oxygen entered the blood. But ideally, this is the required amount, 0.8 ventilatory perfusion ratio, where the arterial blood is having 100 millimeters of partial pressure of oxygen and 40 millimeters of the partial pressure carbon dioxide. This we will study in detail in next video. Now, what if some part of ventilation is blocked? Let's say this part of the bronchi are constricted. Somewhere the part of bronchi are constricted. Blood flow is normal. Blood flow is normal to that part. Blood flow is normal to that part, but the alveoli is constricted. Okay, first we discuss about the reduced blood flow. Reduced blood flow. Let's say to one part of the lung, blood flow decreases. When blood flow decreases, what happens? There won't be much exchange of the gases. Exchange of the gases. So whatever air is present in that part of the lung does not take place in gas exchange, right? Because there is no exchange of gases. Now, what happens? This part of the lung ventilation will be wasted. This part of the lung ventilation will be wasted. This adds to what? Alveolar dead space. This increases the physiological dead space. When perfusion to one part of the lung is stopped, that means it is zero. What happens to ventilation perfusion ratio? It will become infinity. That means it is of no value. So then what happens is, as a compensatory mechanism, that part bronchi will be constricting. That part bronchi will be constricting, diverting the blood flow to the other healthy ventilated area. So when a perfusion to some part of lung is blocked, what happens is that part ventilation will be wasted. There will be wasted ventilation that adds to alveolar dead space. Similarly, then what happens is that part bronchi will be constricted. Bronchi will be constricted. So these are the compensatory changes, especially because of the reduced blood flow. Your pneumocytes in that area will decrease the surfactant, decrease the compliance, and decreases the ventilation. Similarly, because of the lack of exchange of gases here, the partial pressures of oxygen in this area, in the lungs, will increase, and carbon dioxide and pH will increase, carbon dioxide decrease around the smooth muscle, causing the broncholar constriction. The main use of this compensation is to divert airflow to the healthy lung area to increase the gas exchange. So very important, when a particular blood flow perfusion to a particular part of the lung is blocked by any mechanism, what happens? There is no exchange of gases. Normally alveolar partial pressure differences will be oxygen will be 100, carbon dioxide will be 40, because there is no exchange of gases. Slowly this part will have same partial pressures as your inhaled humidified air, and this part will be not useful in ventilation. This adds to the alveolar dead space. Now as a compensatory mechanism, first thing what happens is, here the ventilation should be decreased and the bronchi should be constricted, so that the air will be diverted to the healthy area, healthy lung, and where there is actually perfusion. So this is an important compensatory mechanism. So for the bronchoconstriction to what are the stimuli will be? Increase in alveolar PO2 and decrease in PCO2. If this occurs, the bronchi will be constricted. This is very important. When bronchi will be constricted, air which has to enter that part of the lung will go to the normal healthy part, where it is receiving the adequate blood supply. Otherwise this part will add to the dead space. Now what happens when there is some part of the lung is not receiving adequate ventilation? That means ventilation of a part of lung decreases. This can be because of the bronchoconstriction. Sometimes smaller airways, especially going to the lower part of the lungs, get constricted, collapsed. Now what happens here? Blood flow is normal. When the blood flow is normal, slowly the carbon dioxide levels in the alveoli increases, and the oxygen left in present in the that part will enter the blood and go into the circulation. So this alveolar PO2 decreases and PCO2 increases. I told you in the previous class, the alveolar PO2 levels directly affect your pulmonary circulation, right? If the alveolar PO2 decreases, there will be vasoconstriction of your pulmonary circulation. This is an important potent stimulus. Directly this reduced oxygen levels in the alveoli will act on the smooth muscles around your pulmonary blood vessels. What they does, they mainly inhibit the potassium leak channels, thereby causing depolarization, opening voltage gated calcium channels. Once they are open, there will be smooth muscle constriction. This I told you in the previous video. So this happens when some part of the lung receiving air is blocked. That means ventilation is stopped. Ventilation is zero. The ventilation perfusion ratio will become zero. Now here what is happening is, the blood going to this alveoli is not taking part properly in the exchange of gases. Slowly this blood will take up the oxygen in the alveoli and relieve more and more carbon dioxide. Then alveolar PO2 decreases, right? More oxygen is entering the blood and is going away. Now this is an important stimulus for the constriction of the pulmonary vessels. Pulmonary vascular resistance increases and blood flow is diverted to the normal lung. So this is nothing but shunting of the blood. Okay, this part of the blood going to the, before compensation, the part of the blood going to the lung is not participating in exchange of gases. So when venous blood is going and there is no gas exchange, then there will be, the venous blood continues and mixes with the healthy oxygenated blood, goes into the pulmonary veins. So what is shunting is admixture of venous blood with the arterial blood. That means admixture of less oxygenated blood with the more oxygenated blood is nothing but the shunt. So normally there are two types of shunt, anatomical and physiological shunt. Where is this physiological shunt? Physiologically 2% of the blood will be shunted, especially bronchi, right? Tracheobronchial T receives directly blood supply from the systemic circulation via bronchial arteries. So from there bronchial arteries will supply the bronchi. Bronchi will use the oxygen in that blood supply like your other systemic circulation. The venous blood will go into the bronchial veins. Some of the bronchial veins directly open into the pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein carries what? Oxygenated blood. When this some part of deoxygenated blood via bronchial vein mixes with the oxygenated blood in pulmonary vein, there is 2% admixture of this oxygenated blood. Similarly, in the left side of your heart, left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the pulmonary vein, but the sebaceous veins and some of the cardiac veins directly open into the left atrium and left ventricular chambers. So there also there is admixture of the venous blood coming from the heart walls, entering the oxygenated blood in your left side of the heart. This is the place where physiological shunting of blood occurs. But whenever there is obstruction to the any bronchi, bronchiole airway, and that part of the lung is not taking part in gas exchange, not supplying to the particular blood supply, there will be anatomical shunt. There will be anatomical shunt. So this anatomical shunting will lead to hypoxia. But as a compensatory mechanism, what happens? Because of the low PO2, initially it is, normally it is ventilated, it is constricted. The leftover oxygen is diffused into the pulmonary circulation and the alveolar PO2 decreased. This is a potent stimulus for the vasoconstriction of the pulmonary capillaries and arterioles. Then the blood flow will be diverted to the healthy area. That is the compensatory mechanism. So when there is obstruction to the blood flow, what is the compensatory mechanism? Bronchoconstriction and diversion of the ventilation to the other lung. When there is obstruction to the bronchi, there is pulmonary vascular constriction and blood flow is diverted to the healthy area to maintain. This is your lung homeostatic mechanism. Then bronchial circulation, I told you, it is coming directly from the systemic circulation. The pressures will be equal to the systemic circulation and they account only for 1% of the cardiac output. The most other importance is because the venous blood mixes with the oxygenated blood in left pulmonary veins, there is physiological shunting, 2% of the shunting. And mostly when there is any obstruction to the pulmonary vasculature to the particular part of the lung, let's suppose is obstructed, from the bronchioles there will be new generation of the arteries. This is neoangiogenesis and this supply that particular part of the lung, but this will be coming from the directly from the oxygenated blood from systemic circulation, because pulmonary circulation does not have power of regeneration. So once in adult age, if the pulmonary vasculature is damaged, it is dangerous. It should not be damaged because that part of the lung will not be useful, supplied by that previous pulmonary circulation. And one more thing, anatomical shunting, it occurs when there is bronchial obstruction. Not only that, any septal defects, like they used to say hole in the heart. What is this hole in the heart? Atrial septal defect, ventricular septal defect. Okay, we call this as right to left and left to right shunts, right? There are right to left and left to right shunts. So when there is ventricular septal defect, mainly blood from the left ventricle, because it is at higher pressure during systole, it enters the right ventricle. This is left to right shunt. Similarly, in the atrial septal defect, also blood mixes between your right and left atria. In patent ductus arteriosus, which connects your in your fetal circulation, you have learned that your pulmonary artery is connected to your systemic aorta via patent ductus arteriosus. Normally it closes after birth, but if it is patent and it did not close, that also causes shunting of blood. So what is the shunting? Is admixture of the venous and oxygenated blood. When shunting occurs from left to right side, it is not big problematic, because the blood which is mixing will go to finally lungs and get oxygenated. But when the shunting occurs from right side to left side, and more venous blood is going to your systemic circulation, there will be development of hypoxia, hypercapnia, and also your cyanosis, reduced blood supply. uh, all these things we will discuss later on. But shunting, what it will does is, the final blood coming out of your left ventricle, the left ventricular cardiac output will have low partial pressure of oxygen, which is not desired. We need high partial pressure of oxygen up to 95 millimeters of mercury. Already it was supposed to be 100. Because of your physiological shunting, admixture of the bronchial circulation blood, admixture of your cardiac circulation from the sebaceous veins, we are getting only 95 mm partial pressure in the final arterial blood. That we will discuss in the next video. Okay, go through your textbook. This is very important. Simple thing. Two things are your take home messages. One is, ventilation is inversely proportional to your partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Right? More the ventilation, low will be the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Lower the ventilation, carbon dioxide partial pressure in the blood increases. Similarly, when a particular blood flow decreases, perfusion decreases, there will be wasted ventilation, and so oxygen levels increase, carbon dioxide levels will decrease. This is a potent stimulus for bronchoconstriction, and ventilation will be diverted to healthy part to reduce this alveolar dead space. When one part of the bronchi is constricted, slowly the oxygen levels decreases and carbon dioxide levels increase, because oxygen from this area enters the gas exchange and it goes into the pulmonary veins. But this reduced alveolar PO2 is a potent stimulus for vascular constriction in pulmonary vessels. So the perfusion will be diverted to the healthy area to reduce shunting of the blood. Otherwise, if this diversion does not occur, the blood going to this part will not be involved in gas exchange, will not be oxygenated. So finally the venous blood comes and mix with the healthy part oxygenated blood, forming reduced partial pressure of oxygen in the outgoing pulmonary veins. Okay, go through your textbook. This is very easy. Just remember the compensatory mechanisms. Okay, thank you. Wait for the next video.